You said you'd come. Now let's hope you're not too late.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Long talks. Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it. Long talks. Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it. Long talks. Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it.
Welcome to Jumanji.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 64 of the Woolong Talks podcast. Hi, my name is Jason. I'm the host of the show, as you know. And this week, unfortunately, I'm not joined by the Rustling Kid, aka Rich Kid. And yes, I'm going to keep calling him the Rustling Kid, even though he complained about it on the last podcast, because that's his nickname. And we are fans of continuity here at Woolong Talks. So we're going to continue to call him that. But yeah, he can't make it, unfortunately, today. But we do have a very, very special guest that I'm going to introduce to you now. And that is M from the podcast Verbal Diorama. M, welcome to Woolong Talks.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm the new Rich, I think.
I think you are, yeah, but you need to make more noise in the background though if you're going to be him. So that means you need to randomly start trying to wash the plates while you're talking, or rustle a bag of sweets and start chomping loudly through the microphone whilst you're talking, that kind of thing.
Well, I do very famously. Well, I say famously. I've not had that many episodes out, but I do have a squeaky chair that if I try really hard, hold on. There you go. There's my squeaky chair.
Yeah, we heard it. Yeah, I think I remember you mentioning that on one of your podcast episodes about squeaky chair. I think it was on the Titan AE episode. Yeah.
So maybe I could be Squeaky M or something.
Yeah, that works. That works. Squeaky M works. Welcome. You've just got yourself your shirt name. So
Thanks.
yeah, Squeaky M.
Wow, I'm so honoured. But seriously, it's great to be on the show, and I'm really sad that Rich isn't joining us, but hopefully I'll be a suitable substitute for him.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure you're going to be. And I think your guests are going to love what you've got to say as well. Because I know you're somebody who's really passionate about the movie we're going to be talking about today, which is, of course, Captain Marvel. We finally managed to see the movie. M, I know you've been to see it more than once. I've seen it once. And we've got lots of thoughts on that. And not just on the movie, but about I guess, kind of the cultural impact of the movie and kind of how it's grown within, the cultural zeitgeist in the period up to its release and then on its release. So yeah, we're going to cover all of that ground today. But first of all, M, how have you been and what have you been up to this week? Have you been doing any gaming? Are you a gamer at all, actually, M?
I used to be. Back in the day, I used to work for a very well-known games retailer. And as part of my job, I got to take home games. And this was obviously in the times of the original PlayStation and the N64. So I'm talking a long time ago. It was one of my first jobs, sort of after I finished like education and stuff. So a lot of my time back then was spent playing PlayStation. And N64 and Dreamcast and so back in the day I had all of the old consoles and then I stupidly sold them all because I was an idiot when I was younger. And so I'm kind of slowly trying to build up a collection again. I've got an original PlayStation. I'm very proud of my original PlayStation because it's one of the very first ones that had the parallel port on the back. And I've got quite a few games for that. But really, sort of nowadays games, I guess you could call, God, I sound so old. Oh my God, nowadays games. I have an Xbox One. And to be honest, I don't really play that much on it, but I am a massive fan of Grand Theft Auto 5. And cool. I know it's years old now, and I know that everyone's kind of talking about GTA 6 and when's GTA 6 coming out, and I am going to be the first in the queue to buy GTA 6, let me tell you. But GTA 5 has the honor of being the only game I've ever completed 100%. So, that's how much I loved it.
Cool.
So, but yeah, as a rule, I don't really not really a gamer. I like to collect old consoles and things like that. Like I recently bought, like a couple of years ago, I got the mini NES and the mini SNES.
Nice.
just for nostalgia reasons, really. But then I know it sounds bad, but they're more for show. I don't know, that sounds terrible, but yeah, they're just for me to say that I have them. So yeah, I don't really sort of play games. I watch stuff is really what I do. So yeah, I mean, just this week actually, I started watching Love, Death and Robots.
Cool. Okay.
And to be honest, it's something that completely passed me by, and I started watching it and I realized that the episodes were, 10, 15 minutes long each. And so far I think they're great. Like I love the different I mean, I'm a big fan of animation anyway. Anyone who's listened to my show will know that I have a genuine love for animation, but the different animation styles in all of these episodes and the different stories. I'm about halfway through. I think it's because it's quite, I'm trying to think, I think it's 18 episodes or something.
Yeah, it's like 18 individual episodes, I believe.
Yeah. So I think I'm about halfway through, but I'm just loving the different animation styles. And I mean, some of the sort of photorealistic CGI animation that they do, I like, it's incredible. Some of the stuff is just incredible in this show. And it's a Netflix show. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, we're giving far too much money to Netflix right now, because they seem to have this budget to make this sort of incredible anthology of animation. And it is very, very good. I mean, some of the episodes aren't brilliant, but some of them are just wow, like really good. And I can't wait to watch the rest of them. But yeah, that's really all I've been kind of doing this week, I guess. Obviously, apart from planning my own show, etc., it's all of that. But you're not worried about that. You're just worried about other stuff. So yeah. That's what I've been doing. What have you been doing?
Cool, nice. Not a lot lately, really. To be honest, I've had my hands full with my son, pretty much. I mean, listeners, as you know, I talked about a lot on the last podcast the birth of my son, and it's been just such a joy to have him here, but boy, oh boy, is it hard work. Like for some reason, I had no idea that it was going to be this difficult, even though everybody was saying to me, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah. But I think every parent says that. They literally do not, you can't comprehend how bad it's going to be to not have the sleep. And exactly, I assume you're a little bit sleep deprived at the moment.
A little bit. I mean, to be fair, he's actually been quite a good kid. I mean, we can't really complain too much about him because he does settle down for sort of 2-hour increments. So during the evening, he will sleep for about 2 hours, and then he'll wake up and scream, and then he'll scream for about half an hour, but then he'll be fed and he'll be changed, and then he'll scream some more, but then he'll go down and sleep and for maybe another 2 hours. So we've been able to kind of grab sleep in between those periods, but I haven't really grabbed much sleep. So instead I've been kind of just doing all sorts of rubbish, really, to kind of pass the time and to let my mind kind of settle. So one of the things I've been doing is I've been catching up a lot on The Walking Dead, which is a show listeners here will know I have a love-hate relationship with, and at a certain point I stopped watching it.
Right, me too, actually.
Yeah, I really just fell out of love with the show, but I've kind of caught up on this season so far, and it's actually been not bad because I am a big fan of the comic books. A big fan of the comic books. I collected like all of them right up to I think issue 100, and then I stopped from there, but just purely because I didn't get time to really kind of go to the comic book shop anymore and pick up the other episodes. The other issues. But the show is really kind of found its feet again this season. Season 9 is really showing that they found their place. I know they fired their previous showrunner, which I think needed to happen because he'd kind of run out of ideas, really, and the pace of the show was suffering. People were struggling with the characters, but this new showrunner that's come on seems to have really kind of turned the ship around and brought everything back into place. So yeah, I'm kind of digging that. So I've been watching that at like sort of 2 a.m.
Do you not get scared watching it like in the dark? Because I think I'd get quite scared. I'm a bit of a scaredy cat generally anyway, but yeah, I can't watch horror at night because being surrounded by the dark, it makes my mind kind of go,
oh, what's that noise? Yeah. I'm kind of all right with horror stuff at night. Generally with horror, I'm the type of person who I do love horror movies. I don't like being scared. So the thing is, I'll watch a horror movie and I'll go through, you know, all the jump scares and all the nastiness that they can throw at me. But once the movie's finished, that's when I kind of have the fear, because then my brain starts worrying and thinking, oh my God, I've just seen this movie where this, you know, there's a cursed videotape and this woman climbs out of the TV and kills people. Yeah. What if someone climbs out the TV now? I finished watching this movie. You know, a quick funny story, me and Rich saw, we went to go and see the American remake of The Ring, because I'd seen Ringu. But I hadn't seen the American version. So when the American remake came out, me and him went to go and see it. And I ended up staying at his house that evening. And I remember him when it got to about sort of 1 a.m, because neither of us wanted to go to sleep. So we were just kind of drinking. And it was because we were both scared, but neither of us wanted to admit that. But he was like, okay, I need to do something. So he got up and he unplugged the TV. And I was wondering if you were going to do that. And he was like, no, we just got to be safe, innit? We've got to be safe. And I was like, maybe we should turn the TV around and face it against the wall so that, like, if it comes out, she just hits the wall and goes back in.
The back of the TV, she's only ever going to come out the front. Yeah. So it was crazy. It was crazy, but yeah, I don't mind watching sort of late night horror movies. I also recently watched The First Purge, which was really good, actually. Really good. I think that's. I mean, I don't think I've seen it the whole way through, actually, because I don't remember the end. But I assume they live. I don't know. No point asking me. I really enjoyed the premise of it, because that's Lena Headey, isn't it? In that.
She's in. I think in the original one. She's in. It's her and Ethan Hawke. But there's actually one that I watched recently, which is called The First Purge, which is the title of the film, and it's actually a prequel to those movies. Right. So it's set before those ones, and it kind of shows you how the government came up with the idea of the purge, and how kind of ordinary people in this community on Staten Island in New York kind of deal with the purge as it becomes government policy. It's really good. Really, really good. It's pretty well acted. The scenes are well filmed. It's quite tense at certain points. It's quite scary at certain points. It can be a little bit political as well, which I don't think is necessarily a problem especially with horror movies, because I kind of feel horror movies should be political in one way or another.
Well, real life is horrible,
It's horrible, exactly.
It is
so
horrible.
There's no reason for it not to be a reflection of that. So The First Purge was brilliant. So I've enjoyed that, and I watched Love, Death and Robots as well. I was actually going to do a podcast about that this week. I never got around to doing it, unfortunately. So listeners, I will do that again soon. So that will probably be our next episode after this one. So we'll get that out for you. But yeah, I mostly enjoyed it. Some of the episodes I didn't like, but then that's kind of how anthologies are anyway. I find in general in anything the quality tends to vary. It can be some can be absolutely fantastic and some can be a bit but overall as a concept I really like. I dug the concept totally. And yeah, I'm like you. I'm like, where is Netflix getting all this money from? Because they seem to be throwing money at projects left, right, and center. So
yeah, well, you say that though, but then I was quite upset about a week or so ago because they cancelled One Day at a Time, which is honestly one of the greatest sort of sitcoms that I think Netflix have ever done. And I kind of feel a little bit like it annoys me because the reason for cancellation was that they didn't have the numbers for the viewers. But they didn't promote the show. And if you don't promote the show, then of course you're not going to get
the numbers. Yeah.
Sorry,
exactly.
watching, not listening. But that annoyed me, because I kind of feel like they set up one day at a time to fail. And I don't know why, because it's so lovely and heartwarming and wonderful. And it talks about such important issues that no other show tackles. And so I'm really cross actually at Netflix right now, because they can spend all of this money on what is a wonderful achievement, you know, with Love, Death and Robots and all of the other shows they put out, but then they can cancel something like One Day at a Time. It's like, why? I don't get it. It makes me cross. Yeah.
Well, I feel your pain. I mean, I'm still reeling from, you know, the fallout of the Marvel Netflix shows being cancelled.
Oh my God, so, let's not even go there, because otherwise this whole
let's not open that box, because I've got I've got a lot of emotions about that. So let's keep that box closed for this evening.
Same.
Take all our feelings and bottle them up inside.
Let's talk about those another time, because there's a lot of feelings there.
Totally. But as said, listeners, we're going to move on from that chat, and we're going to talk about our main subject today, which is, of course, Captain Marvel and the arrival of that movie in cinemas in the UK. Now, the movie has been out, I think, about 3 weeks. Am I right in saying, Em? Is it about 3 weeks it's been out now? Or?
Yeah, about 3 weeks. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, roughly 3 weeks.
Isn't it? Weekend, so, and then the third weekend. So, about 3 weeks.
No. And at last kind of check that I had a look at on Box Office Mojo, it was very close to reaching 1 billion box office office sales so far. It's very, very close. So, I mean, it's pretty much, I imagine, any day now. It will
guarantee $1 billion.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah, which is an incredible success. And, you know, it's for Marvel Studios, the studio that put it out, obviously they're going to be very happy, because they've got yet another hit movie on their hands, which, you know, they seem to be putting out hit after hit at the moment, certainly in terms of box office sales. And, you know, the audience seems to show no sign of slowing down in terms of the movies that they want to see from them.
Let's be honest, we lap it up. We really lap it up.
Yeah. I mean, every so often you hear people kind of talking about superhero fatigue, and people saying they're a bit tired of being, you know, oversaturated by superhero movies and then superhero TV shows, and then, you know, they're slowly breaking into gaming and other forms of media as well. So, you know, you hear people say, oh, you know, I'd rather not have another superhero movie, or they kind of roll their eyes and say another superhero movie. But then generally these things come out and they make money. So, you know, it's no surprise that the studios want to keep making them, because, you know, if the money's there and the audience is there and people are going to go check it out, then, you know, that's the way the game works. And so it. But
and at the end of the day, you know, I mean, I don't like, you know, corporate fat cats and people like that who are literally just diving into their swimming pools full of cash, because that's probably what's happening here. But at the end of the day,
real life Scrooge McDucks.
Yeah, definitely. But at the end of the day, Disney run a business, and they have to have profitability in that business. And so, of course, if they see a market that they know that they can make the big bucks, then of course they're going to do that, and they're going to continue to do that. I mean, I guess I'm one of these people where, I love superhero movies. I always have, sort of ever since the ye olde days of, you know, the first Blade and X-Men movies. You know, I've been a fan. So I'm one of those people who's literally first in the ticket queue for the cinema, you know, to see these films. But I also do appreciate, you know, independent filmmaking and you know, new ideas. And I do kind of see the double-edged sword here, in that if the market is just saturated with superhero movies and that's all people want to see, you know, the new ideas and then, you know, the new people trying to kind of come through and pitch these ideas for, you know, great new movies, they're not going to be seen as much. And I do kind of feel like that at the moment, that people aren't really willing to give maybe smaller movies a go, because it's like, oh, well, the next Marvel movie's coming out, or, you know, the next DC movie's coming out. And I think it is great. It's great for fans to have this wide world of, you know, so many different comic book movies, you know, from Marvel and DC and Black Horse and you know, everyone, and that's great. But I do kind of feel the loss a little bit for independent movies and for new ideas, especially in the realms of things like sci-fi and, you know, action adventure and anything that kind of taps into the comic book world, because obviously comic books are kind of going galactic now, and they do fit into the action adventure, and they do fit into espionage, you know, like Winter Soldier, and they kind of tap into all these different markets.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's important for not to have this massive behemoth, which is Disney, controlling all of the pots.
Yeah,
and at the moment, it is a little bit like that.
It is, yeah. Well, it is. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, in terms of kind of like the movies and stuff and supporting independent film, I mean, I always say to people, look, you know, if you say you're kind of bored of superhero movies and things like that, then that's fair enough. But, you know, what are you doing to help the people who are trying to put out independent ideas and to put out, you know, original pitches for movies and things like that? Because obviously as fans, there's, you know, we can only do so much in that process. There needs to be somebody at a corporate level who, you know, is willing to take a punt on an idea and say, all right, here's a couple of million quid, go and, you know, make your TV show or make your movie or whatever it is, and we'll see how it goes. But certainly, you know, I feel that there are lots of things that kind of slip under the radar that people don't even really notice. You know, one of the things that I spent a lot of time doing last year was trying to signal boost a Netflix show called Ghoul, which I really love, which is a show that is, well, it's not even a show really, it's a miniseries, it's a 3-part miniseries, it's a horror, and it's set in India. And it's so well done, really, really well done. And it's got some great ideas in it. And it also teaches you a little bit about Indian culture and Indian politics, and it kind of addresses all of that. It addresses how there's kind of religious disputes within the country as well, and how the two major religions there kind of see each other, and how political paranoia plays into that, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's a great show, and it didn't do that great in terms of Netflix streaming numbers. Yet everybody who saw it came out and said, oh my God, this is really good. You know, nobody really came out and said, oh, well, that was a waste of my time. You know, it's a really good thing, but people need to kind of do a bit more in terms of making sure that you're signal boosting the things that you like and or things that you want to see. But that said, as you said, you know, we are at the mercy of big corporations. Unfortunately, that's just how this business works. Yeah. It's, you know, so it's down to them to make those decisions. But certainly as fans, we can make sure that whilst we're, you know, happy that, you know, the MCU is getting the X-Men back and the Fantastic Four back, and, you know, we can all celebrate that. And we're totally, you know, I'm as excited as the next person to see, you know, the X-Men where they should be as far as I'm concerned. But of course, you know, that doesn't mean we shouldn't also, you know, pay attention to the consequences of that decision, which is, you know, Fox 2000 studio shutting down and a load of people losing their jobs, and, you know, that likely harming, as you said, and likely is going to harm the development of independent film in the future. So, you know, we do have to be aware of all of these things, I think, as movie fans and as comic book fans. And, you know, if we do want original content, then, you know, it's said in this age and in this era of social media and social media having the power to kind of move some of these big institutions to do things differently. We've got to make sure we're doing our part and you know, and helping those creators out there who, you know, are doing something that we think, this might be something I like. Let me, you know, give them a little hand and push what it is that they're doing. So, but we've gone off on a tangent already.
Yeah, we have a little bit, but I do think, you know, you're right in that. I think a lot of fans see the positive repercussions of Disney buying Fox, and obviously everything that comes with Fox. It's not just X-Men and Fantastic Four. It's things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and The Simpsons, and you know, all of these kind of classics are now owned by Disney. And I love Disney to pieces, and I have ever since I was a child. And you know, there's a lot to love there, but you also do have to look at the ramifications, and there's always going to be you know, a negative to a positive. And when you are talking about, you know, the film industry, and with any industry, if you've got a big corporation that takes, you know, buys all these little companies and kind of absorbs them, you do get some, you know, most oftentimes you get, you know, job losses, and you get obviously when a big corporation does take over, the little voices kind of, they're a little fish in a big pond, so to speak, and it's more difficult to get your voice heard in a big corporation. And it's exactly the same sort of thing. And I do have so much sympathy for the people. I think it was thousands of people lost their jobs, and it's something that is not really being talked about. It's all the positive stuff's being talked about. Like, people are happy that the X-Men are coming over and Fantastic Four. I want to see a good Fantastic Four movie because they're great characters and they deserve a good movie. And I love the X-Men till my dying day. I will love the X-Men because the X-Men was literally the first superheroes that I ever knew as a child. And so I have so much love for those characters, and I'm desperate to see, you know, them integrated in this universe, but not at the detriment of these wonderful people who are doing such a great job. And I know that they will go out and they will find good jobs, and, you know, and I hope that they, you know, all stay in the industry and continue doing what they're doing. But yeah, I think it's very easy to just look at it positively as a fan, but there's always going to be an opposite reaction. And yeah, I think it is important to talk about because, yeah, like I say, I don't think many people are talking about that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but anyway, let's move on to something a lot more fun.
Yeah, well, hopefully you enjoyed our little rant there, listeners. Again, as we railed against you know, the evils of big corporations. I'm sure this is a completely different Wool of Talks episode than what you're used to.
Oh my
but
God.
that's fine.
I am so sorry.
That's absolutely fine. That is absolutely fine. There's room for that part of the discussion, and it's an important discussion to have, as you said, for all of the reasons that you outlined. So you know, people do need to kind of think about these things. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But let's get into Captain Marvel, because that's what we're here for. That's what we want to talk about. So listeners, we're going to do, I guess, a review of sorts, and we'll talk about, you know, kind of the things we liked and we didn't like about the movie, if there is anything. And then we'll also go into kind of how the movie has impacted on the culture as a whole. I will say this up front, this is going to be spoilers in this one, so, you know, if you haven't seen Captain Marvel yet, probably isn't a good idea to dive into this episode just yet. So you might want to stop where you are, take a step back, and then go to the cinema and see Captain Marvel, and then come back and
give Disney some more money.
Yes, give Scrooge McDuck some more money to fill in his
and then come back to us.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so Em, I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, you know, what were your kind of expectations going into the movie?
Well, for me, as the woman in this scenario, and obviously not just as the woman in this scenario, but also a person who has some knowledge of Captain Marvel or Ms. Marvel from the comics. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and be all like, well, in comic book number 52, Ms. Marvel said, because no, I'm not going to do it, because A, that's not what I do, and B, I literally have no clue. My only real knowledge of Captain Marvel came from Ms. Marvel, obviously when she was part of Rogue's introduction in the X-Men. And that's kind of the only real version of Ms. Marvel that I knew, was the Ms. Marvel who ended up in a coma because Rogue took her powers, and that's because Rogue's my favorite of the X-Men. So that's the only reason I know that, is because I knew Rogue's history. And and mainly from the X-Men cartoon, because I used to watch that all the time when I was a kid and I loved it. So going into this movie, obviously I had some knowledge of a version of Ms. Marvel. To be honest, I didn't really know all of the different versions of Captain Marvel. I was obviously completely stoked to finally get a woman leading a movie in the MCU, because honestly, it's been a long time coming, and I truly believe that Marvel should actually be a little bit ashamed of that fact, because it's been proven that, you know, these so-called second-tier heroes, the ones that Marvel didn't sell to the likes of Fox and Sony to make money, you know, the Iron Man, obviously the Iron Men, I guess, Thor, etc. That people love these characters, and they've obviously built this fantastic universe, and they introduced Black Widow back in Iron Man 2, obviously played by Scarlett Johansson, who was phenomenal. And it was a subpar movie, but she was pretty much a standout for me, because I saw this woman, you know, kicking ass and taking names, and I was like, wow, this is great. Like, she's awesome. I want more of her. And you know, as we go through the MCU, there have been some great female characters, but no one actually kind of leading her own movie. And for a long time, we thought it would be Black Widow, and it kind of made a bit of sense for it to be Black Widow, because she's established in the universe. We know her. We know some of her history. We know she's got red in her ledger. We know that she was trained as an assassin. We know, you know, they went into a little bit of her backstory in Age of Ultron, which is a movie that obviously has many, many issues, including issues with her specifically, but I'm not going to go into that today because it's not the time or the place, and I don't want to rant. But yeah, for a long time it was kind of like, well, Marvel Studios, when are you going to give us our girl? You know, and it was kind of this, oh well, it's going to be Black Widow because that's who we know. And then it just never kind of materialized, and I guess kind of generally all of the fandom was kind of asking, well, why? Like, why not? Why can't you have a woman leading one of these movies? And then, you know, 21 movies later, we finally get her. And also it's important to kind of make a point that we did have Ant-Man and the Wasp, and she obviously co-led the movie, and Evangeline Lilly was perfect as the Wasp, and I think she was incredible, but it was still just a co-lead, and I just kind of feel a little bit like it was a step in the right direction, but we needed this, and I think it was important that it was Captain Marvel and it was Carol Danvers, just because she's completely brand new. We have no expectations for her, or we have this idea that Kevin Feige put into our heads to say, well, she's the most powerful being in the universe, you know, and that's basically what he told us. So it's like, well, wow, you know, this is cool. Like, having her come into the universe, but also come in the 90s, so in the past, I think was actually quite a genius move, because she doesn't really interrupt the universe that we currently know. She's purposefully been set in the past, which I think they also did really well with the first Avenger, sort of as a period piece, sort of completely separate to Cap's future adventures. And I kind of feel like they've tried to purposefully do the same for Carol, and I think in the most part I think it works really well, but sort of as part of my expectations, I guess because female-led comic book movies generally haven't done so great. You know, I mean, Catwoman and Elektra, and you know, they're really fucking bad. They are really terrible, and I don't want, you know, little girls and little boys, because let's be honest, it's not a gender specific kind of thing, you know, for our kids and the kids of the future to just think that Catwoman and Elektra are the girls kind of, that's what the girls have to deal with. It's like, no. You know, we had Wonder Woman, and that was brilliant. Like, I have so much love for Wonder Woman, and I'm so glad that we got Wonder Woman. But really, DC kind of got the horse out of the gate first off, and I think in a way that was good for Marvel, because Marvel could look at Wonder Woman and see what worked and see what didn't. Yep. And I think overall they kind of, I think they maybe took a little bit of a cue from Wonder Woman in that regard. But, you know, I'm so, because there was so much riding on this movie, there was a pressure on this movie to do well, because there were a lot of people who were slagging it off before it even came out. So anyway, I feel like I've ranted for a little while, and I'm really sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, my expectations were that it was going to be awesome. That was genuinely what I thought it was going to be, and it met them. It met them completely. Everything.
Yeah.
You can talk now.
No, that's cool, man. I mean, that is exactly what, you know, the listeners want to hear. They want to hear your passion. So yeah, no, I'm totally cool with that, man. Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I guess I would pretty much echo everything you said, really. From an expectation point of view, because I became a fan of Carol Danvers, because I wasn't necessarily that big a fan of Miss Marvel as a character. But when she was rebranded as Captain Marvel in the comics and kind of relaunched by the writer Kelly Sue DeConnick, the relaunch that she gave the character gave her a real sense of purpose. Which is what I felt was kind of a bit missing towards the end of her kind of Miss Marvel persona in the comics, really. So when, you know, Marvel Studios said they were going to make a Captain Marvel movie, you know, when Kevin Feige did that big Phase 3 announcement donkeys ago, it feels like now, and said, you know, they were going to do a Captain Marvel movie, and their Captain Marvel was going to be Carol Danvers, I was like, cool. Awesome. Okay, I'm with that, because, you know, this Carol Danvers is one that really intrigues me as a character, because of kind of, you know, in the comics she has all this power, but she's still kind of figuring out, you know, what this power means and what her place within the universe should be, because, you know, in the comic book she inhabits this massive cosmic universe where there are various different characters out there who all have you know, similar power sets to her, or in some cases greater power sets to her, or come from kind of different backgrounds and things like that. So, you know, part of what's been enjoyable for me as a fan of Carol Danvers is watching how she kind of interacts with these different characters. So when they said they were going to do a movie based on that, and they said it was going to be based on Kelly Sue DeConnick's run, which is called Further, Higher, Faster, More, I think it is. I was like, yes, I'm sold. Like, get me in, you know, get me thinking, because I want to see that on the screen. So for me going in, I guess in my head, I was kind of like, I want to see how, you know, that kind of vision is going to play out on the big screen. And for the most part, I think they did a really good job. I mostly kind of enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, you know, I did mostly enjoy it. I think there were some parts of it that I was a bit like, well, which we'll get into, which was more to do with kind of the first act of the film. But
yes, yeah.
But, you know, once it kind of gets past that bit, it's actually really good, a really good movie, a really fun MCU movie. And yeah, you know, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I tried to kind of not let my knowledge of the character govern my opinion of the movie too much, because you know, one of the things me and Rich were talking about, Richard is a big fan of Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, not just because of the stories that were told, but I think because and I mean, he's told this story before on the podcast, but it does have very kind of personal, it touched on him in a very personal way, that character's arc. But because there's so much history with the name Captain Marvel in the Marvel comic books, and it's synonymous with so many different things, it's it's not safe to kind of go in with these preconceptions of, it's got to have this and it's got to have that. You kind of have to take the movie on its own merits. And again, that's something that I've had to do in general with the MCU, because a lot of the movies, that they've made are of characters that I am familiar with, and I do know something about their backstory in comic books and certain adventures that they've had. But I've kind of had to train myself to check that at the door, because, at the end of the day, these guys are filmmakers. They're not comic book buffs, and it's not their job to take everything, verbatim from a comic book and put it on the screen. It's their job to tell a coherent story, and one that they think is going to appeal to, the widest audience possible around the world. And a lot of the people watching this movie probably have never picked up a Captain Marvel comic book before. So you kind of have to explain all of this in a way that makes sense to them. Mm-hmm. So for me, I tried to kind of put that to the side and was like, I just want to go in, be entertained, have a good kind of space adventure movie, a cosmic adventure movie. Marvel so far have shown that they're very good at doing kind of space movies, particularly with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Oh yeah, I love Guardians.
Yeah, they're great. So
good.
So, I felt we were in safe hands, really, going into the movie. So I had no real kind of worries about what was going to happen. Starting out with kind of talking about the movie a bit, I guess. What did you make of Brie Larson as Carol Danvers and her performance in the movie, in her first big sort of leading role, I think, really? Because she's only really kind of done independent stuff up until this point, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I knew of her, but I only knew of her because I know she won an Oscar a few years ago. And to be honest, it's a film, The Film Room. I've not seen it, but it's on my watch list. It's something that I'm interested to watch, just purely for the fact that she won an Oscar for it. So I think when they announced her, at first, I thought, I've not really seen her in anything. And it's only kind of recently that I've realised, actually, she's been in a lot. and I think the most recognisable thing that she's been in was Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is an incredibly underrated movie by Edgar Wright, who is, I think, personally, one of the greatest current, living directors, that I think we've got. He's a very kind of visual director. He's a very, very good with comedy. And obviously, us being Brits, we know him from, Spaced and the Three Favours Cornetto trilogy, which are genius movies. Everything that he does is genius. And I remember going to see Scott Pilgrim in the cinema, and I think there was only maybe 3 or 4 other people in the showing. And it was really disappointing because it was so much fun. And I think Brie Larson played Envy Adams in that movie. I'm just going off.
That's right. Yeah, from what I remember. Yeah.
And I remembered her kind of from that, and then I thought she was really good in that movie, and then I think sort of coming into this, first of all, I'm just going to make it completely clear that I think that Brie Larson is perfect in this role. I genuinely do. I think that they could have had their pick of many different actresses for this role. And I kind of feel like, and it's something that I feel sort of, obviously since the movie's come out and sort of into the run up of this movie coming out, there were a lot of trolls on the internet who were trying to discredit her and taking something that she said about representation in the media industry, the people who were reviewing, film critics. Thank you. Having more diversity in the film critics that were going to be reviewing this movie. And I think that a lot of the stuff that she said, I think, was maybe kind of either A, misquoted, or B, taken completely the wrong way. But I think she is obviously very vocal about these sort of topics, and they're topics that are important to her as an actress and as a general kind of human being. It is important to have representation, you know, not just in your movie, in the cast of your movie, but, you know, in the crew of your movie and in the people who are going to be reviewing your movie. It is important. And that's all she was saying. She was just saying about how she would prefer to have that diversity. And there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like her coming out and saying that is such Carol Danvers thing to say. That is what Carol would say. That is what Carol would want. And I kind of feel like her casting it feels very reminiscent of Chris Evans, who is obviously Captain America. He has been Captain America for the best part of 8 years. He is the perfect Captain America, you know, on screen and off screen. He is also very vocal about things that really matter. And he is not afraid to kind of stand up in the real world or on Twitter or in interviews and sort of say what he thinks. And that, I think that is great. That is what we expect of Captain America. And he's perfect as Captain America. And I think that Brie Larson is what we expect of Captain Marvel. And, you know, a person who just seems to be very understanding of the world they're living and not afraid to tackle injustice where they see it. That is important for these characters, but especially for Captain Marvel, because she's a woman. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that because as a woman, there is an additional injustice there, because you don't expect a woman to stand up. But the moral of Carol's story is you get knocked down and you stand up. And these trolls were trying to knock her down, and all she did was stand up. And to me, that is why she's perfect. I don't think any other actress would have done that. And I'm struggling to kind of think of an actress who would be strong enough to kind of stand up and say no and get knocked down and stand up. And that's why I think she's perfect. She's great in the role just generally. I think she has the kind of gravitas that we would expect Captain Marvel, but also the fact that at the start, she doesn't know what she's doing. you know, when she has these powers and she's told pretty much continually by Yon-Rogg that, you know, that she has to keep her emotions in check and that she has to do as she's told, basically, because if she doesn't, they'll take her powers away. And she kind of starts the movie in a very sort of insecure place. She doesn't really have a place on the Star Force yet. And she finally gets that opportunity, and it obviously all goes a bit awry. And then when she does actually kind of get to unleash these powers, she's really kind of in awe of what she can do, and she doesn't it takes her a while to kind of get there. So I do kind of feel a little bit like Brie Larson doesn't just come in and play Carol as, you know, she walks into the room and she's automatically the strongest and the best, and, you know, she plays Carol as wow, I didn't know I could do that, oh my god, this is amazing, like just as how anyone would react if they automatically kind of started to have powers one day. So I honestly think she was an excellent choice, and I can't wait to see her in the wider MCU. I can't wait to see her in Endgame. I can't wait to see her kick some Thanos ass.
Yeah, I got the feeling she'll be kicking a lot of purple butt in that movie, so
I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun.
But I mean, I was really impressed with Brie Larson in this movie. I have seen a few kind of reviewers kind of criticize her performance, which, to be honest, to me, I don't get. I can only assume that, you know, you have some other reason for criticizing her performance on that level, because I don't think there's anything wrong with her performance at all. I think in the context of the story that they're telling, as you've so eloquently outlined, it makes perfect sense that she would play the character in the way that she has done. You know, and I thought she was great. I thought she was really the kind of Carol Danvers that this movie needed, and the MCU needed it at this point. So to me, you know, all of her creative decisions made sense. She was really engaging to watch. You know, you kind of some of the emotional beats maybe didn't quite land in the way that perhaps they should have done, but again, that stuff we'll get into in a bit, and it's more kind of how I viewed the structure of the movie. But that's certainly not on Brie Larson. You know, Brie Larson's performance was, for me, great. I mean, she's a great addition to the MCU. She, as you said, represents a lot of things, and she carries off all of those things superbly well. You know, and I was really engaged by her performance, and by the end of the movie I was like, yeah, I definitely want to see more of Carol Danvers. I want to see her interacting with the other Avengers. I want to see, you know, where her personal story goes, and I want to know, you know, what she does now, particularly with the way the movie ends. You know, I'm really keen to see where she's going to go as a character. So for me, you know, she got 2 thumbs up. I really enjoyed Brie in this movie. I thought she did a terrific job, and yeah, all power to her, man. I enjoyed that. What were kind of the scenes for you that stood out the most? Was there any kind of scene, because I know you've seen the movie twice, so you probably have a better memory of this than I will, but were there kind of like specific scenes in the movie that really kind of gripped you?
Yeah. Excuse me. I think kind of the main standout scene for me was the fight with Carol against the Kree Star Force. In my head, I kind of call it the Just a Girl fight, because it's when No Doubt's Just a Girl kicks in. And I've heard a lot of reviewers kind of say that the song choice is a little on the nose for them. But for me, it was perfect. You know, it's a song that resonates a lot with me because it was the song on No Doubt's Tragic Kingdom that I played a lot on repeat when I was kind of, you know, a kid in my bedroom, just, you know, with my No Doubt Tragic Kingdom CD. And the lyrics of that song, I think, really represent the feeling that you kind of get when a woman is sort of continuously kind of told you can't do this, and then when she's just kind of, she is at that point not really very sure of what she can do, and the fight is messy, and you know, the pacing is weird, and the camera angles are weird, and I know a lot of people kind of don't appreciate that about this particular scene, but for me, I thought it was great because it's not supposed to be a masterpiece of cinema. It's supposed to be a bit of a messy fight because she doesn't really know what she can do. She is fighting messy because she has these powers, and she's, you know, fighting against these people, and she has no plan. She doesn't know what she's going to do next. She just kind of tries her best to sort of put them down, and I think it's great. I think it's great fun. I think the music definitely helps. And I mean, we can talk a little bit about the soundtrack generally later if you want, but the soundtrack is banging, absolutely banging. Like the sort of 90s rock pop kind of thing. It's just genius. Like whoever decided on those tracks is literally a genius. It's just really fucking awesome. It just really is. And you know, I have to kind of speak a little bit about the scene when Carol lands in the Blockbuster and meets Nick Fury for the first time, because that is kind of what we've been waiting for, because we have been waiting for her to land on Earth, and we have been waiting for her to converse with someone that we know, and it just happens to be Nick Fury. And obviously I kind of feel that any scene with Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson is just gold. Like they are so good together. And Samuel L. Jackson is a guy who I believe is 70 years old. I believe. I really hope that I haven't just offended Samuel L. Jackson by saying that he's older than he is. But
I think you're right on that. I believe he is about 70. Yeah.
You know, he's a guy with such a stellar career, sort of all sorts of genres he's done. I think he might actually hold the record of being in is it something like his movies have made the most money or something like that?
Yeah, I think he's considered like the most profitable star in Hollywood or something like that, in the sense that he's, you know, the movies that he's been in throughout his career have made so much money that, basically he's like kind of gold dust pretty much in terms of Hollywood. So, yeah.
Yeah, the dude's been in everything. He's a legend. He is a genuine legend of cinema. You know, this is a man who's going to go down in history as being, I think, one of the greatest. You know, just because he can pretty much do any role. And I kind of feel like Brie Larson has obviously had a career, but obviously not to the level of Samuel L. Jackson. And any actress kind of coming in and against someone as legendary as Samuel L. Jackson might be feeling a little bit nervous, you know, and a little bit like, I really respect this man. Oh, you know, how am I? But it's just consummate professional the whole way. And I've watched interviews with them, and they genuinely act like best buds. And obviously they have that genuine rapport with each other and genuine friendship and respect, and that really comes across on the screen. And I genuinely think every scene with them is just brilliant. And any scene with Annette Bening as the Supreme Intelligence.
Yeah.
I mean, what a woman to get on your cast. She is just, I mean, it's Annette Bening. You've got Annette Bening in a Marvel movie. I mean, this is like
it's crazy, isn't it?
When Robert Redford turned up in Winter Soldier, and it's like, you've got Robert Redford.
I mean, when we did our trailer review for Captain Marvel, when the first proper trailer sort of dropped, me and Rich talked about it, and then, you know, I remember saying to Rich that I was like, I completely forgot that Annette Bening is in this film. Like, Annette Bening is in this film. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was like, you know, we're talking about Annette Bening here, and she's in a Marvel movie. Like, what? You know, like, at this point, like, the MCU is just its own fucking thing, man. Like, from the moment they can get, you know, as you said, it started with Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce in The Winter Soldier. And from the moment they could get him, it was like, well, you know, all bets are off. And then now it's Annette Bening is in there. It's like, Christ, you know, I'm half expecting us to see Meryl Streep at some point.
Oh, please. Oh my God.
Let's
get that petition started. Let's get Meryl in. She would just be phenomenal. I mean, let's not forget, we had Glenn Close in Guardians.
Yes, yeah. Well, we've had Glenn Close in Guardians. We've had Angela Bassett in Black Panther. We've had, like, you know, we've had like screen legends kind of
proper legends
in these movies. So yeah, you know, it felt fitting and right that Bening was in this movie.
Yeah,
it really did. My favorite scene was probably, funny enough, you mentioned it, was when Carol arrives on Earth for the first time and meets Nick Fury. The interaction between the two of them is just brilliant. I love, like, and from that point, I think that's when I really started to love the movie, because of the kind of buddy cop banter that the two of them have when they go on this chase to try and find this world engine whilst trying to evade the Skrulls. You know, that I loved. I really loved that. I loved, as you say, the way they kind of, the two of them play off of each other. And yeah, it just felt so natural when the two of them came together on the screen. You know, it was just perfect for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the way that they introduce her by her falling into this blockbuster from the 90s. And, you know, it just really kind of sets the tone. And as you mentioned, you know, the soundtrack plays its part as well, because they made some really good choices in terms of music used in the soundtrack. And that's something that the MCU is getting a lot better at as well, because they didn't always do that. But I think from about sort of maybe from about sort of Guardians of the Galaxy, the first
which is
one
also
onwards,
banging.
Yeah,
good soundtrack.
From sort of then on, they've become really clever at how they, you know, they kind of use music within these movies and the choices that they make for the music within those movies. And since then, you know, it's been brilliant. But that scene for me was terrific. Loved it, especially the conversation at the phone booth. You know, that was great. That was really, really great. And loved that scene. But speaking of Samuel Jackson, were you freaked out a bit by the CGI de-aging thing that they did with him? I mean, I know that it's certainly not the first time the MCU has done it. You know, they've done it to great effect in Civil War, and they did it in Ant-Man, in the first Ant-Man with Michael Douglas. You know, they're clearly very good at this technology. But what did you make of what they did with him, and also with Clark Gregg as well? Because you know, we mustn't forget Agent Coulson makes his appearance in this movie as well. You know, so what did you think of how they handled that?
I mean, they did an awesome job. It's just they really did. And I remember when I first saw the de-aged Nick Fury on screen, obviously the first thing I did was kind of look at his face and try and I don't know, try and find the line, you know, the bit where they kind of pasted the face on his real face. But it's flawless, like genuinely flawless. And you get to a point where you maybe spend a few seconds looking at his face, and then you completely forget that this man is 70 years old, that you genuinely believe that this is Nick Fury from the 90s. And I think it helps as well that Fury as a character is a little bit different to the Fury that we know from the current timeline. The 90s Nick Fury is a bit more upbeat, a bit more positive, a bit more kind of chirpy and funny. And he's obviously he's relatively new at Shield and at this job, and he obviously has a bit more of a positive outlook on life. And I think that helps because it differentiates the two versions of Nick Fury, and that does kind of help with his face in a sense that you genuinely believe it a little bit more, that the man can become jaded over time. I mean, we have seen this before in sort of short bursts. And I think it definitely helps when they have a point of reference from other movies. And they have obviously taken performances in other movies to get an idea of how that person looked at the time. Because I think when we're talking about CGI in any respect, especially when we're talking about the human face, it's very easy to have that uncanny valley feel. And I think the most recent example I can think of is from Rogue One, where obviously the actor is sadly passed away, but they've basically reimagined him in kind of a full CGI format with the face as it was in that timeline back then. And at that time the technology kind of didn't feel like it worked. For me it's always the mouth. Like it's the mouth that doesn't quite move right. It doesn't quite feel right. And I kind of felt that in Rogue One, but I think here, because you've got the actor there, you've got a point of reference for his performances from the 90s that you can look at, and you kind of put the two together. And it's the fact that they did that for the whole movie is astonishing. It feels genuinely groundbreaking. And because I mean, when they did it with Michael Douglas, it was for maybe, I don't know, 5-10 minutes max. And that looked great. And they did it, I think, for Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War.
Yeah.
And that also looked great because they had a point of reference because he was acting when he was, considerably younger. But honestly, it just astonishes me the level of technology and the point in which we are in movies where we can de-age people. And, you can have an actor who's 70 years old who looks like he's 45. And it's honestly quite phenomenal. But I think that I think the movie does suffer a little bit in other scenes with CGI. But I think for this is obviously where they've kind of ploughed all of the CG, budget or majority of the CG budget into, and it's flawless. It's genuinely flawless. As for Clark Gregg, I mean, he's not actually on screen all that much. So the fact he had like a poster, I kind of expected him to be around a bit longer.
Yes.
But I kind of feel a little bit like, not that I didn't realize he was there, because that sounds bad, but he's more of a cameo, I would say.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I think because where Clark Gregg's concerned, I kind of feel like he looks pretty much the same. Like, I don't feel like he's aged all that much. I don't know. I didn't see that much of a difference with Clark Gregg personally. But with Samuel L. Jackson, it was just, I just thought that this is just phenomenal technology. Like, what a time to be alive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, imagine we're sitting here on a podcast talking about de-aging actors, and things like that. It's crazy. And yeah, I mean, I was really blown away by the job they did on Samuel Jackson. It really, for again, all the reasons you kind of said, it felt so natural, and so. It just felt so seamless, because I was like you. I was looking for, okay, where am I going to be able to spot that this is obvious CGI? But I couldn't, like, no matter how hard I tried, and I did try. I was really looking, but I just couldn't figure it out. I was like, I don't get this. Like, how have they managed to do this? How have they pulled this off? So yeah, I mean, it's crazy that the people that they work with, the CGI artists that they work with, have been able to do this. But yeah, I mean, amazing stuff. Really is amazing. And yeah, Clark Gregg. Yeah, I guess that was one of my gripes. Maybe was that Clark Gregg was I kind of felt we were maybe going to see him more than we did, and like you, I kind of forgot he was actually in the movie until he pops up somewhere around the middle of the second act, and you're like, oh, you're still here. Okay. Yeah, so I kind of forgot he was there, and I wasn't really too sure what they put him there for anyway, because he didn't really seem to factor hugely into the story as such.
No, I think Fury makes a comment, doesn't he? Something about that he's a newbie or something like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's I think it's just a continuity thing, maybe, to kind of just show that Fury's been there so long, and then this new guy has come up, but he seems to be good at what he does, and just so that the fans can kind of have that kind of partnership going back. Because obviously we know that do you know what? I've just completed the Clark Gregg's character name. It's just completely gone out of my head.
Oh, Coulson. Coulson, yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, that Coulson is loyal, very loyal to Nick Fury, and yeah, I think it was a nice little callback to kind of prove how his loyalty, the fact that he lets them go, and because he is that loyal, and he does genuinely believe in what Fury is trying to do, and believes that this guy believes in this woman. Yeah, that was nice, but yeah, it wasn't entirely necessary, but it was just nice to have him as pretty much an extended cameo.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to describe his role really in this film. But that brings us nicely along to another thing I wanted to chat to you about, really, which was characters. And obviously, aside from Captain Marvel herself, Carol Danvers, was there anybody who kind of made a big impact on you in a positive or negative way, really, from the movie?
Well, yes, of course. Now, because I wanted to talk about a couple of characters who I kind of felt were really positive in the movie, and because I wanted to talk a little bit about Ben Mendelsohn, as Talos, because I think that as an actor who is primarily in pretty much every other movie the bad guy, I think that hiring him was a bit of a stroke of genius, because when you see that Ben Mendelsohn is in a movie and you associate him with the Skrulls, who canonically are bad guys, and you automatically have that assumption sort of going into the movie that he's the main bad guy. And I absolutely loved that they subverted that. And I loved that Ben Mendelsohn was kind of able to sort of bring a genuine kind of warmth and sincerity and humor to the role of Talos, because I think when the movie does, it purposefully does this because it sets the Skrulls up immediately as the bad guys, and these are who the Kree is fighting against, and obviously Carol is fighting alongside the Kree, and at the start of the movie it does kind of perform a little bit of misdirection. It makes you think that the Skrulls are the bad guys, and when one of the main reasons I wanted to watch the movie twice was because the Skrull twist, when we realised that the Skrulls are actually refugees that have been persecuted by the Kree, I wanted to see how that worked, because obviously it does go to great lengths to set up the Skrulls as the bad guys. And to be honest, on a rewatch, it does actually work when you know that they're not the bad guys, because and I think that's really important, in that you kind of see it in a completely different frame of mind, and when you're, especially the scenes when she's hanging upside down and they're obviously trying to get information, they're not obviously trying to torture her, they're genuinely interested in who she is and what she knows. And I just think that his casting was just genius. And when he shows up at Maria Rambeau's house, and you automatically kind of feel that he's there for some like antagonistic purpose, and he just wants to talk to them, he just wants to tell them their story, and I just think he's genius. Underneath all those layers of makeup, which the makeup in this movie is great, you just feel the sincerity, and the fact that he sees Carol as more than just this Kree fighter, that she's a person who could help his people, and all he cares about are his people and his family, and he just wants them safe. And I think it's really difficult. I assume it's really difficult. I'm not an actor, but I assume it's really difficult as an actor to have that kind of twist there, because you've got to be convincing enough as the bad guy, but then you've also got to be convincing enough as the good guy. And I think he's great. I just think he's wonderful. I think because he was in Rogue One and he was the bad guy.
He was
in Rogue One. I mean, he also, the fact he doesn't look like himself, I think obviously kind of helps with the disassociation. So yeah, I did want to kind of point out him, because I think what a genius stroke of casting that was. And we were all fooled. Every single person in the whole world was fooled into thinking that the Skrulls, and by extension Ben Mendelsohn as the main Skrull, were the bad guys, and we were all fooled. And how silly were we? But I also wanted to, on a positive note, speak about Maria Rambeau, because it's important for this movie that there's no love interest.
Yes.
And that is really important, because in so many movies where you do have a woman leading, and it is a general kind of romantic comedy trope, she always ends up with someone at the end, and it's always the best friend or the guy from work or whatever. And I do kind of feel like any lesser movie could have had this romantic subplot with Jon Rog, and he's not just her trainer, but he's also her lover, and all of that bollocks. But the movie is smarter than that.
Yeah.
And instead it focuses on the love between these two women, that they are best friends. One is a single mother who, has her own issues. We don't see that any father is in the picture. And we know that essentially Carol helped Maria raise Monica. And so there is a genuine love and a genuine warmth between these two women. And what I really liked about Maria was this woman's best friend was presumed dead 6 years ago. So she's been living her life as best she can with her daughter and trying to get over the loss of this dear person in her life. And then her friend turns up at her door, and she doesn't shut the door in her face. She doesn't, welcome her with open arms. She's skeptical because she has every right to be skeptical of this person who's presumed, they just assumed she was dead, and then shape-shifting aliens turn up on her doorstep, and she's skeptical again. But she doesn't hesitate to help Carol. She doesn't hesitate to help Talos either, really. She trusts Carol. She respects her. They had similar experiences, obviously, in the Air Force, because women weren't allowed to, to fight, essentially, in these planes. They were test pilots. That's all they could be. But they were the best at what they did. And so they have that kind of shared experience, and you kind of get glimpse of their life in sort of flashback scenes where they did karaoke and were at the bar together, and there just seems to be such a genuine warmth between them and a genuine kind of love between them. And that's the most important love, really, is not so much the romantic love that you get in all of these movies that, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't even really work, and I'm talking the likes of Jane Foster, and I'm talking the likes of Sharon Carter, and all of these kind of love interests that are just kind of tertiary, really, not necessary. It's not necessary to the story. And I really like that they didn't go down that route, and instead they focused on the love between these two women who have been there for each other their whole lives, and the fact that it is important. It's the lack of romantic relationship was a good thing to omit, because it actually bolsters the friendship and this relationship between Carol and Maria. And I just think, we're definitely going to see more of Monica. Let's be honest. Monica Rambeau, if she doesn't turn up in the MCU at some point in the next few years, then Marvel have missed a trick, because that little girl in the 90s is going to be like mid-30s now. So if they're not casting someone for that role right now, off the top of my head, I'm kind of thinking like someone like Janelle Monáe would be perfect. Then, then they're missing a serious trick. And I guarantee that we will see Monica Rambeau again. And we might even see Maria Rambeau again. We don't know. But I would love to see either of those women again. Women, I obviously mean grown-up Monica. But child Monica was very fun, and I kind of like the precocious kind of kid character. I think that's always really sweet. And but yeah, I love the relationship between those two women. I think it's important to have female friendship portrayed on screen. The Bechdel test is a real thing. This movie flies through the Bechdel test. And, obviously we've spoken a little bit about Annette Bening, but canonically, Marvell was a man. And they've obviously changed that to be a woman, to be Wendy Lawson. And I think that's important too, to have that female mentor in Carol's life, which I think generally for this movie, it is important to have not only the woman as the lead, but also to be surrounded by women who inspire and educate and help her. And that's what this movie does really well. They're obviously, we're not eradicating the men completely, because, you know, there are some great roles in this movie for the guys. There are also some not great roles, which I'm going to get to, but generally this movie kind of wins on pretty much everything. The only thing I was kind of a little bit negative on was probably Yonrog and just kind of the Kree Star Force in general, because the Kree Star Force aren't really developed well enough for us to care.
No, they're not. Yeah.
I don't even remember most of their names. I only really remember, obviously, Yonrog and Korath, because Korath was obviously from Guardians of the Galaxy, and Minerva. And that's only because Minerva is played by a British actress called Gemma Chan, who I really like. So, but yeah, I kind of found that Yonrog was kind of, yeah, I like Jude Law because he's attractive.
Listen, you're not the only one. Richard has a serious love affair with Jude Law. So I mean, the two of you could talk all day about that.
I know. I wish he was here right now so we could talk about Jude Law. But it's just, to me, it was just Jude Law being Jude Law, and I kind of felt that there was no real character there other than Jude Law just telling her, you can't do this. You need to be better. You need to stop being so emotional. I'm going to take your powers away from you, just over and over and over again. And I was just like, oh, Jude Law, just stop talking and just be pretty. Yeah, he's attractive. Yeah. I have a thing for Jude Law, okay? But yeah, that was a little bit of a disappointment. But on the whole, I think the movie did a great job with casting in general. So yeah, I would say more positives than negatives, definitely.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel more or less the same way, really, in terms of characters as well. I, in particular, really enjoyed Maria Rambeau, who is, I think, Lashawna Lynch, I think her name is. She did a really good job with her, and again, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. You know, what was terrific to see and to watch was, you know, this friendship between these two women and the love that they have for each other as well. And the way in which they, you know, have kind of, you really got the sense that they've kind of helped each other through difficult times, you know, in the Air Force, as you said. And you know, that
and just
was
through life in general, I think.
Yeah, just through life too, you know, and it felt believable. That's the thing, you know. It felt like these two people are friends who have been through, you know, probably some pretty nasty shit, and have counseled each other through it to the other side, and you know, the love that has come from the two of them connecting in that way is kind of, it's pure and it's uplifting, and it feels right, you know. It feels right for these two characters to be who they are and to be together, and you know, it works on such a great level for me, and on many levels, again, as you've totally broken down. You know, it works on so many different levels, so you know, that really kind of stood out for me. So yeah, those two in particular, you know, I really enjoyed. And yeah, I guess the negative would be same as you. The Star Force were a little bit kind of, they were just kind of there in a bit. And I suppose the problem is that I have with them is that they were part of that first act, and the first act is it's fine. It's not, you know, it's not bad. It certainly wasn't, you know, anything that caused me to zone out of the movie, but I just didn't feel any real emotional weight at that point in the first act, because
it feels very exposition.
It feels,
doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It feels exposition-y. It feels very much like a tick box exercise in order to get her to Earth, and then once she gets to Earth, that's when, you know, the movie really starts. But yeah, I mean, and aside from that, I think the only other one I was a bit like, not negative on, but I guess just kind of like, was oh God, what's his name? Ronan the Accuser.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was because again, that was another one that they kind of, well, they didn't market it as a big thing that he was in it, but obviously the fact that he's, we know he's the antagonist from Guardians of the Galaxy, we were kind of, or I maybe perhaps wrongly had kind of presumed that he was going to be, some big antagonist in this movie because of what we know of his character from Guardians. But effectively, he's basically just a cameo, like Clark Gregg, really.
Yeah.
And so we didn't really kind of feel anything for him,
Yeah,
Sorry,
I was just going to say, I think because I've seen it twice, the first time I was a little bit like, I didn't understand really why Ronan was in the movie.
Yeah.
And I did kind of feel like you that, why is he even here? But on second viewing, it did kind of make a little more sense in that I guess I kind of saw it that because it was the Kree, and they were talking about the fanatical Kree, and obviously the version of Ronan that we see in Guardians is sort of the supreme fanatical Kree. He's so hell bent on destroying everything that isn't Kree, and I think that the point of him being in this movie was he's obviously not at that point where he's that fanatical yet, but he's on his way, and you can kind of tell he's on his way because at this point the Star Force they believe that the Skrulls are a genuine threat, and they're going around and eradicating this Skrull threat from the universe, but they're mainly kind of just focusing on the Skrulls. And I think Ronan is obviously their sort of go-to man who kind of sets the ball in motion. And I think that they're obviously trying to make a point that at some point in the near future, Ronan is going to become so intrinsically fanatical about the whole kind of Kree superiority in the universe that he obviously takes it too far. And it also kind of sets up Korath as well, because I kind of thought, well, why? I like Jimon Hunshu. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his name. I'm trying really hard. Jimon.
Oh, you've done better than I would have.
Have I?
So yeah, well done.
I like the actor. I think he's really good. And at first, I was like, why is he there? Why is he in the Star Force? But I think he kind of makes a comment or something towards the end about sort of him maybe being in agreement with Ronan.
He does,
yeah. And
does,
that obviously is as a nice stepping point to how he actually ends up in an alliance with Ronan and with the accusers and what the accusers are there to do and what they will do sort of going into Guardians. But I do kind of feel a little bit like you in that, okay, they wanted Ronan in the movie. He is more of a glorified cameo. He doesn't really add much to the movie. I kind of feel a little bit like I love Guardians completely, and they hired Lee Pace to be Ronan, and I feel like Ronan was underserved by Guardians, and I really hoped that they would kind of do a little bit more with him in this movie to kind of get Lee Pace because Lee Pace is great. Like, he's a wonderful actor, and I really hoped that they would do more with him, but they kind of didn't. And I don't know if there are any cutscenes or anything that we might see in the future with Ronan that might explain a little bit more. But I also kind of feel like at the end, he kind of fleed a bit quickly. Like, the accuser ships kind of descend on Earth and they send the bombs, and Carol basically gets rid of everything. And she goes up to the ship and she stares at him. And then he's like, right, okay, let's leave. And I'm like, okay, I kind of expect a bit more from Ronan the Accuser, but maybe this is, I'm thinking of Guardians Ronan and what Guardians Ronan would do. But I just kind of feel like he kind of ran away with his tail between his legs a little bit. But
yeah. I mean, he does have that line at the end where I think where they say, oh, we'll be back for the weapon. and I think his compatriot says what, the core, and he says no, the woman. So I don't know if that was trying to kind of set him up for maybe a future Captain Marvel movie where he will become the antagonist. That's assuming that they're going to continue sort of telling her story from 1995 onwards, and then going on from there. So I took it to mean maybe that's what they were doing, but I'm not sure.
I mean, I hope we see more of him. I hope we see more of Lee Pace, because Lee Pace is great. And I do hope we see more of Ronan. But if we see more of Ronan, I want them to do something with Ronan instead of just have him there, just, you know, spouting some Kree bullshit or whatever. I just let's make Ronan a really good bad guy, because he has it in him, definitely. And yeah, let's give Lee Pace some more work.
yeah,
because
for sure.
He was great in Pushing Daisies, and they cancelled it. So, you know, let's get Lee Pace back in the MCU, and let's get him doing some serious antagonistic shit.
Yes, yeah, I'm down with that, totally. All right, cool. Well, yeah, I think we've kind of chewed the fat on that one. So let's see, where do you kind of rank this movie on your MCU list in your head? Because we've all got them. And let me start off by telling you there's absolutely no pressure for you in this, because I'm still trying to work out what my MCU list is, and it tends to change every day depending on how I feel. So,
you know what?
So by all means, please, please do not feel pressure. But yeah, you know, just from a fun point of view, where would you kind of place it, I guess, on your personal ranking list?
I'm going to be completely honest. Right, and I'm gonna let the listeners into a little Woolong Talk secret, in that you sent me a really nice document with sort of the outline of what we were going to talk about, and one of the last things that you said was, you know, where does it rank, and so I've had that document for a few days, and I've been mulling on that for a few days, and at first I thought I had it, and then it was like, no, I'm changing my mind. And I was like, I'm going to come back to that later. And then I was like, no, right, I definitely know where it's going to rank now. And I basically took all of the movies that I ranked above. I summarized that it would be in my top 10. So then it was like, okay, if it's going to be in my top 10, where's it going to be? And it's like, oh, but I really love that movie. And oh, but I forgot about that. And I need to put that in there. And I was like, oh God, this is so difficult. I'm going to have to come back. And literally every day I've kind of gone to the list and gone, right, okay, I've put it there. But what about that movie? And and it's like, I love Captain Marvel more than that one. So I'm put Captain Marvel up. And honest to God, this list has been like making me crazy. It's been genuinely, it's so, when you've got 21 movies that are this good.
Exactly. Yeah, it's hard. It's bloody hard.
I mean, I will fight against anyone who doesn't like Thor till the end of time, because I love Thor. I'm talking about the first Thor. Yep. I think Thor is great. I think it's immensely rewatchable and it's fun. And Chris Hemsworth is just the perfect man. He's better than Jude Law. I mean, he is a literal god.
He is incredibly buff, isn't he?
Oh my God. Oh, he is lovely. Anyway, need to move on from Chris Hemsworth. And it's like, at first I put Thor in my top 10, and then it was like, no, I can't have Thor in, because it's so difficult. No, there are no bad movies in the MCU. There are mediocre movies and average movies, and you know, at the end of the day, everything's subjective. You know, what one person likes, another person doesn't like. But what I thought I'd do is, I'm going to quickly run through the top 10 that I've kind of spent several days working on. Because I kind of feel like if I've spent several days working on it, I at least need to be honest and say it. So what I've done is Captain Marvel has gone in at number 7. Okay, and my summary of my reason, and I know people are going to think I'm just crazy, but I'm just going to say it. So it goes in at number 7 because number 1 is Avengers. Because I love it completely. And I know it's not what many people would say is the greatest movie, but I think it's brilliant. And just the cinematic marvel of putting all these characters in one movie and making it work. Oh my God, that is so good. And then number 2, Winter Soldier, because it's just a wonderful espionage spy thriller. And oh my God, Chris Evans is in it. And oh my God, Scarlett Johansson's in it. And everyone's brilliant in it. And it's wonderful. Number 3 is Guardians 1, because it's brilliant. Oh my God, I'm just going to say everything's brilliant. And number four is Black Panther, because it's brilliant. number 5 is Civil War, because it's brilliant. And number 6 is Guardians 2, because it's brilliant. And then Captain Marvel, only because, and I kind of feel like I've got to justify this, I kind of feel like the storytelling in Guardians 2 is that little much is better. I love the story of Guardians 2. I think it works on so many levels. I think basically everything works on so many levels. And then Captain Marvel, followed closely by Thor Ragnarok, because it's brilliant. And then Infinity War. And then it was like, oh my God, where am I going to put Iron Man? It's like, shit, I've forgotten Iron Man. So Iron Man's had to go number 10. And honestly, the fact Iron Man is number 10 is proof, if any is necessary, that it's so hard to rank these movies.
Yep, exactly. It's basically Hobson's choice. It's which one do you pick? Like, it's really hard, and I know it was a tricky question. I literally just threw it out there because I know it's something that.
Why would you do that to me?
I know it's
stressing about that for days.
I know it's something that our listeners love to hear, and people in general love talking about their kind of MCU list, but it's bloody hard. And I mean, as you just demonstrated, it's incredibly difficult, because this is a series of movies that have gone from strength to strength to strength. And with some of them, there's a fag papers difference between them. I mean, especially for my top 10, there really isn't, I almost kind of wanted to cheat and say I'm going to do this in no particular order, but then that's not really kind of dealing with the question.
Out.
Yeah, that's a cop out. So I thought, no, you know what? I have to be brave and kind of stand by my choices. So what I've done is, I'm actually not far off from you in terms of where I put Captain Marvel. I've got Captain Marvel, I think, at number 8. So I've got Civil War as my number 1, because I fucking love Civil War. I really do.
I thought you were going to say because it's brilliant, and I was going to go, yes,
I was
it
close
is brilliant.
to saying that. Yeah, I was close to saying that. I really was. I just love Civil War on so many levels.
So
Winter
good.
Soldier is number 2 again,
Yes.
because it's just a phenomenal movie, absolutely phenomenal. They really kind of raised the bar. The Russo brothers did, in terms of what you could do with a comic book movie. Number 3 is Infinity War, because I just love it. Black Panther's number 4, because I love it. Avengers is brilliant. I mean, same as you. I mean, over time, I don't think it necessarily, in terms of the character work and the script, it doesn't perhaps quite stand up to some of the others.
I don't think it will, but it doesn't stop me from loving it.
Yeah, but it's just a brilliant thrill ride from start to finish. I mean, that's basically what the Avengers is. It's an absolute thrill ride, and so enjoyable. So Avengers, what did I get to? Avengers was at 5. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 at 6, because I just love it. Thor Ragnarok at 7, because it's one of the funniest films I've seen in a long time. I genuinely had tears in my eyes at certain scenes in that movie.
Taika Waititi,
the comedy
is such
is so
genius.
Good. He is. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. I want him to do all the movies now.
Just literally every single movie directed by Taika Waititi.
Give it to Taika Waititi, because I want to see more of what he could do with stuff. And then just after that is Captain Marvel. And then the bottom two are rounded out by Spider-Man Homecoming, partly because I'm just really partial to Spider-Man. I've always have been. And I just really enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming. And then OG Iron Man 1 rounds out the number 10. But to be honest, it's not far off of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It was really a toss-up between those two as to which one would take 10. And as said, going down the list from there's really not that much difference between them. You know, the only one I was kind of certain on that I didn't like it, and I have lots of problems with this movie, is Avengers Age of Ultron, which is way down on the list for me, because I just, you know, the more it's funny with Avengers Age of Ultron, because when I first saw it, I loved it. I was like, yes, Avengers, yes, it's great. Ultron, yes, you know, we're getting Ultron on the big screen, yes, you know. And then I saw the movie and I came out and I was like, yes, buzzing, Avengers, buzzing, yeah. And then I kind of sat down and thought about it, and I was like, but actually that didn't make sense. Why did they do that? And why did they make this decision and that decision? And the whole, you know, the Black Widow thing that you mentioned earlier on was just like, the more I think about it, the more it makes my brain hurt. Even though I think arguably the best scene in the whole movie is that scene with her and Mark Ruffalo, in terms of like the performance that the both of them give is some of the best acting I've seen in any movie anywhere. But you know, it's problematic what they've chosen to do.
Exactly.
And it chose to do with Black Widow there.
And it's another example of where a romantic relationship is just not necessary.
It was just kind of shoehorned in there, really.
We don't need to see Natasha and Bruce you know, together. I didn't feel like they had chemistry, and the whole kind of going into her backstory and what they chose to talk about and how they chose to talk about it is I understand why a lot of people were upset with that particular scene, and with what they chose to do and how they chose to do it. I think more importantly, because you can be a bit more sympathetic, I think, I kind of feel like they were trying to do something with her character, and I just think it backfired a little bit. But it's interesting though that I think our lists are quite similar, except
I said we're kind of on the same page.
Really. Except my Spider-Man for me was just outside the top 10, whereas obviously I kind of had Guardians 2 in, and obviously Guardians 2. So it's interesting though, definitely.
I mean, as said, a lot of these movies, to be honest, I could wake up tomorrow and substitute Spider-Man for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. You know, it as said, the you know, this is a tremendous testament to what Marvel Studios has done. Is, you know, they've just put out good movie after good movie after good movie after good movie, and some of them have hit the heights of greatness as well. You know, but they've been consistently good. And this was why, you know, I kind of had no worries going into a Captain Marvel movie, because I, you know, as I said to Richard when we were talking about it beforehand, I said, you know, I completely trust Marvel Studios at this point.
It's a tried and tested formula, isn't it?
You know,
they know what they're doing.
They know what their formula is. They know how they want to make their movies, and generally speaking, it works. You know, the audience gets it, and everybody has a great time at the cinema, and you know, it's good stuff. So yeah, I mean, that was tricky. So thank you, Em, for playing along with that. I know that's tough.
I'm so glad it's out in the open and I can finally relax.
It feels like a weight off your shoulders.
It really does. It's been weighing me down for days. But
cool,
you say, it'll change. It'll probably change tomorrow or the next day or whatever. And but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you know, people love these movies, and it really doesn't matter, because they're all great. And you know, if I can sit there and quite happily watch a Thor, you know, the first Thor movie, or even Thor: The Dark World, which I actually don't think is as bad as people say it is, and enjoy it and love it and laugh along with it, and that at the end of the day, that's all that it's there for, is just for people to enjoy the media, and it doesn't matter what you love as long as you love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amen to that. Well, rounding out the chat, I guess we should probably talk a bit about the legacy we think that this movie may have culturally and for the MCU, particularly because as you mentioned at the top of the show and earlier on as well, there's been kind of these two forces almost, and this kind of culture war around Captain Marvel the movie. For some reason, some people have decided that they are going to, use this movie as a vehicle for them to vent their perceived frustrations at liberal politics or whatever it is that they've got a bugbear in their bonnet about. I don't quite understand why this film has triggered these people in such a manner. And I've seen, certain videos on YouTube and read certain think pieces from people who've basically gone out of their way, as you said, to slag this movie off before they'd even seen it and before it even come out. And one of the things that that really frustrates me about being a movie fan, and especially with the kind of fandoms that we deal with, like Marvel and Star Wars and things like that, is it seems to be becoming very tribal. In a sense that people have pitched their flags in their camp, whatever that may be, and have decided that because this is their camp, you can't say anything or do anything contrary to what they believe the doctrine should be in terms of discussion around particular characters and movies. And it's become really frustrating for me, just as a fan, to engage with these things. I mean, we've seen this with, Ghostbusters when that came out, which, I didn't think was a particularly good movie, to be honest. And I said so in my review, but I couldn't, I just could not get my head around this kind of anger that people had towards this movie. I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, I don't understand it either.
And,
honestly,
it happened with The Last Jedi as well, with Star Wars, where people seem to be, there seems to be a faction of people who actively were trying to make the movie fail and were saying that the movie had ruined the Star Wars franchise, and and they wanted the director fired, and they want the head of Star Wars fired, and they want this and they want that, and again, you can have your opinion on the movie, you can like it, you can not like it, and I don't mind negative opinions on movies that I like if you can come up with a coherent argument as to why you don't like it. Then if you turn around to me and you say, well, I didn't feel this performance was effective, I didn't feel the script was good, I didn't feel this, I didn't feel that, then fair enough. If you're an honest actor, I'll take that. But when there are people out there literally using their spare time to try and trash a movie before it's even come out, I just I despair, really, and I have no time for people like that, and I don't like engaging people like that either. There's been a couple of times on Twitter when people have tried to bring me into conversations like that, and I'm just not interested, because we're not, you're not an honest actor. I'm happy to talk to somebody who's an honest actor who has an opinion that may differ from mine on a movie, and that's fine. We can talk about it. That's what makes doing what we do fun. Like, that's what makes podcasting fun, is hearing different perspectives and seeing how people have viewed something that you viewed in a different way. And as I said, as long as it's coherent and it comes from an honest place, then fine. But I don't understand it. So yeah, this movie has had its share of that, and it seems that this is obviously, as said, based on evidence. This is not something that's going to go away. Do you think that kind of thing might harm Captain Marvel going forward? Because I mean, it seems to me like, to be honest, a lot of people made a lot of noise, and then the movie came out and they made $1 billion. So obviously a lot of people didn't bother paying attention to your brilliant YouTube think piece on why Brie Larson's politics mean the movie should crash. But what do you think about that? Do you think that that's going to have an impact on Captain Marvel going forward?
No. is the standard response. I think that this movie has just given a big F you to all of those people. It's not only financially done incredibly well, it's also been overall received very well by the people who have actually seen it. And honestly, the people who it's there for, it's not there for the trolls. It's not there for people who don't give a shit about the character. It's not there for people who don't want to see women headlining movies, because all of the examples that you just talked about, Ghostbusters and The Last Jedi and this, they're all fronted by a woman or women. I mean, could it be the fault of women? You know, it's just, it's honestly, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that these people have nothing better to do with their time than to go online and slag movies off. Movies that, like you say, before they've even been released, and they've not even actually watched. And at the end of the day, like you've just said, if they watch those movies and they decide based on that movie's own merit that they do not like it, well, that's fine. That's their opinion. They are entitled to that opinion. Surely an opinion of a film before it's even, come out on it's going to be shit. I don't, I think it's going to be rubbish. It's going to fail.
Keep politics out of movies.
Exactly. For whatever reason.
When politics has been a part of movies since the dawn of fucking time. But yeah.
Honestly, I don't understand the mentality of people who think that that's a really good and valuable use of their time, because I like to see the positive in people. I like to believe that people are good, or they can be good, and I like to believe that people will admit when they're wrong. And I know that that's maybe a little bit naive of me, to kind of think that there are people out there who would slag off something like Ghostbusters or The Last Jedi and then watch it and go, do you know what, guys? I said that I thought that movie would be shit, but do you know what? I actually really liked it. And I thought the performances by these women were great. And I know that doesn't happen, because why would they? Because, they want to save face. They're not going to admit that they liked that movie because they were slagging it off 2 months ago before it even went out. So of course they're not. But I am so happy that Captain Marvel stuck 2 fingers up at those people and went, do you know what? I don't give a shit what you think. I'm just making $1 billion at the box office. So, fuck you. And your trolly thoughts. And it makes me so sad, actually, because regarding Ghostbusters, I actually thought that was decent. I actually have quite a lot of love for that movie. I know it's got problems, but I thought all of the lead actresses were great. And it seems to me like, I know that, because obviously we mentioned a little bit earlier about Hollywood, and Hollywood does tend to stick to a formula that they know. And so there is this this thing in Hollywood at the moment where obviously we're asking for more movies with primarily women, female casts. We're asking for movies that are more diverse. And Hollywood's going, yeah, we're going to do that for you. But what we're going to do is we're going to remake a movie that came out, a couple of decades ago, but we're going to put women and people of colour in it. Is that okay? And most people are going, well, okay, I'm not that kind of keen that you're remaking my movie that I loved a decade ago, but well, okay, fine. I love Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters movies. I think they're fun. They're childhood favourites. So, I have a lot of time for Ghostbusters. But that didn't make me kind of stand up and go, well, I'm not watching a new Ghostbusters with women, because why would women be Ghostbusters? That's ridiculous. It's like, women can't fight ghosts. What are you, crazy? I kind of took it on its own merit, because the cast was great. And I have a lot of time for the majority of the members of the cast. It introduced me to members of the cast that I didn't know, like Kate McKinnon, who I've since kind of got to know a little bit by watching her SNL videos. And I just think she is just, and Leslie Jones as well. I didn't know her. And now it's like, wow, these women are hilarious. I love these women. And I kind of feel a little bit like people have a love for certain movies, be it Ghostbusters or Star Wars or anything that they know from their childhood or from their early years, and they are very passionate about that. And when it kind of comes around that these movies are going to be remade or reimagined, or Hollywood's going to do that, it is going to do that. You can't stop it from doing that. And everyone wants more diversity in our movies. We don't want movies with, just white dudes in, because that was kind of what they used to do. Yeah. White dudes have got their role models in movies. They've got millions of role models to look at. And I kind of feel like Hollywood should be investing more in up and coming talent, and, especially, actors and screenwriters and directors. But we obviously mentioned a bit earlier about how difficult it is for studios to make these, to have these new ideas and to get them funded, and for people to actually want to see them, when you've got these kind of big behemoth tentpole blockbusters by the likes of Disney, because Disney own everything now. And it is really difficult. And I kind of feel like you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't say, oh, well, I want to see more women and people of color in my movies, but I don't want to see a remake of Ghostbusters, and I don't want to see more Star Wars movies with a woman as the main character, and I don't want to see that kind of, I don't want to see that kind of thing, because it's kind of inevitable that's what they're going to do. And I've kind of gone a bit off topic again. I really apologize. I don't mean to. It's just I kind of get going. I kind of feel like with regards to Captain Marvel, that because obviously we mentioned that Kevin Feige introduced Captain Marvel and also introduced her as, the most powerful person in the whole of this universe that we're talking about. I think that kind of upset a lot of people, in the sense that she was a woman. And I think a lot of and obviously, I really want to be very careful I'm not pointing the finger at men in general, or, a certain type of person. And I want to be really clear on that, because we are talking about a very small faction of the internet that is very insistent on hating everything that isn't what they want. But we're not in the playground anymore. It's not a case of, oh, well, you can't play with my toy because I don't like you. I want to play with my toy. We all have to share. And, and sometimes you might not like something, and that's fine. Like, it's okay to not like it. But like you mentioned earlier, don't turn around and say you don't like it because it's got a woman in it, because that's not an adequate answer for me. It's not. It's, you, like you said, if you don't like it because you don't like the script, or you don't like the plot of the movie or whatever, then that is absolutely fine. I have no problem with anyone saying to me, I didn't like Captain Marvel, and I'll go, okay, cool. Like that is that, because I kind of feel like I love it because it spoke to me. And I did a little episode on it because I kind of felt like I wanted to put my thoughts out there about how it did speak to me. And I didn't expect it to speak to me, because I was of the opinion that it was more for kids, and I wanted it to speak to kids like my niece, who's 8, and I wanted her to have someone that she can look up to and she can believe in, and she can think, well, I've got a hero that I can look up to. Just like, because we are living in a world which is very sort of segregated with regards to gender, and but boys can only like boys things and girls can only like girls things, and I completely disagree with all of that, but I know the majority don't. So a lot of boys tend to lean towards the more sort of male superheroes, Spider-Man and Iron Man, and that's great. But girls-wise, I kind of feel like, for me, the lasting legacy of this movie is going to be the fact that she's here, she's great, she's a great role model. And it's also important to recognise as well that a couple of years ago we had Wonder Woman, and I know we've mentioned Wonder Woman briefly, and a lot of the negativity I kind of felt that a lot of people had towards this movie was, well, we had Wonder Woman, and right, okay, and then it's like a lot of articles popped up about Wonder Woman versus Captain Marvel, who's better, and sort of pitching these two characters against each other, and pitching the actresses against each other, and just the movies in general against each other, and I kind of feel like, hang on, wait a second. So you have a woman in the DC universe who, in my opinion, her movie is the best of all of what DC's put out, I think. She is strong, she's powerful, she's fierce, she crosses no man's land, for fuck's sake. This woman is an incredible woman, and she has a heart, and obviously she has a heart. That's a silly thing. She has heart. I mean, not she has a heart. Obviously.
I know what you meant. Yeah.
And she's a phenomenal. Wonder Woman is a phenomenal role model for girls and women in general. And then Captain Marvel comes along, and it's like, well, hold on a second. Women are only allowed one superhero to like. You've got to choose. No. You don't have to choose. You can like both. And I guess I kind of feel a little bit like maybe there is an oversaturation in the market when it comes to, because there are lots of male superheroes to choose from. And not once has anyone said, well, hang on there, you've got Batman and you've got Iron Man, but who's better? Let's just pitch them against each other, and you've got to choose which one you like more. Do you like Batman more or Iron Man more? Because they're very similar. And no one's ever kind of done that. No one's ever kind of pitched them against each other. And that there does seem to be this kind of mentality generally kind of in the world that you're allowed to have lots and lots and lots of things that are, the more kind of masculine edge of superheroes. You're allowed to have multiples. You're allowed to like different ones. You're allowed to like more than one. But when it comes to the female side, we've got two now, which is great because that's more than what we had before. But you're only allowed to pick one. Like, how is that progression? It really doesn't make sense. And I really hope that the lasting legacy of this movie is we're going to get more. Yeah. I want to see Monica Rambeau. I want to see where she is, who she is. Like, are we going to get Photon turn up in the MCU? I want to see Black Widow. They've said we're going to have a Black Widow movie. Let's get that Black Widow movie. It's a bit late, but I'll take it. Let's get that. Let's be in a position where we're not talking about the legacy of this movie is, well, now we've got two superheroes that young girls and boys, if they wish, can look up to. Let's be in a position where we've got loads, because it's only fair, really, at the end of the day. And just to make a point that I feel very strongly that with regards to Black Panther, because Black Panther was obviously an incredible movie, and I have a lot of time for it. Like I say, it's I think it's number 4 or 5 in my top 10, because I think it was number 4 actually. And I think that is just an incredible movie, just in general. And I kind of feel like, in a way, it's kind of our Black Panther, because Black Panther was so important. And whilst I don't think that Captain Marvel is quite up to the level of filmmaking as Black Panther was, obviously Black Panther got a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars, which is just phenomenal in itself, honestly. What an amazing achievement for everyone involved in that movie. I don't think that Captain Marvel will get an Oscar nomination next year. Not that I don't think it deserves it, but I don't think that the Academy will think of it in that way. But that's not a slight. A slight against it. I just don't think that. I think that Black Panther was more deserving of that accolade. But it's like it was important for Black Panther to be around at the time when it came out, and it's similarly important for Captain Marvel. But also the women in Black Panther were phenomenal. Like some of the best portrayals of women in pretty much any MCU movie. Going forward, and obviously, I mean, since then we've had like Valkyrie, who's just great, and I want to see Captain Marvel and Valkyrie together desperately, and I think the whole world does. And I saw on Twitter that Tessa Thompson and Brie Larson are keen, so let's get that going, because it's really important. It's important for everyone to be able to see them on screen and to be able to have that representation. It's so important, and we're kind of beyond the stage of having a Marvel universe that's just kind of for the dudes with women as love interests and secondary characters. We're beyond that now. We're moving forward, and I want to see more. I feel like I'm look, Oliver Twist, like, please sir, I want some more.
I mean, I think the personally, I mean, trolls will be trolls and they will be there, but I think the future is bright, particularly for Captain Marvel. And I think, finally, I think Marvel Studios is listening and is aware now that people want to have women in these movies and have them as lead characters in these movies. And I think that, we're Captain Marvel really, and the financial and cultural success that movie is shaping up to be will open the door for Photon to appear, and for Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, to appear, and for all of these characters that people love. So I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. I think that there is a bright future, much in the way that we felt optimistic when Black Panther was so successful. We felt that maybe a door is now being opened in Hollywood, and other studios are going, okay, so people don't mind if you get a diverse cast together and you actually spend some marketing money on it. Even though, to be fair, the Fast and the Furious franchise had been proving that a long time ago as well, because they cracked that formula really quickly, really early on, and were like, oh, so like you like a diverse cast, yeah? All right, well we'll do that then. But yeah, I do feel like the legacy of Captain Marvel will be of one of a trailblazer, one that will start a process that hopefully will lead us to getting our our Black Widow movie, and as said, our Photon movie. I mean, I'm quite partial to A-Force movie. I don't know if you know A-Force from the comics.
I don't know.
But they're basically an all-female Avengers team.
Oh, sweet!
And I'm like really partial to that. And I think now that Marvel has got enough really well-rounded female characters in place in their universe, there's definitely no reason why they can't do it now. So I'm hopeful that we will get that going forward, although they still have to bring in She-Hulk, and they haven't done that yet. But yes,
I think that's still owned by Universal. I think because Universal still has the rights, I think, to She-Hulk, and they have an agreement for Bruce Banner, but I don't think that agreement extends to I can't remember her name. Jennifer Waters. Yeah, Jennifer Waters. That's it. Yeah. But no, I think that would definitely be interesting if they could have an agreement put in place for the characters that they don't currently own. I mean, well, they made an agreement with Sony for Spider-Man, which was pretty revolutionary, actually.
Yes.
So there's nothing to say that they can't have a chat to Universal about the characters that they still own. And you never know. We might get, we may even get another Hulk movie one day. The way I look at it is anything is possible now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is a bit of a golden age of superhero cinema, in the sense that they do have all these characters. They can access these other characters. The world is kind of their oyster, really. I just hope that Disney continue to respect the wishes of the people who really want to see all of these different characters, and that I hope that they continue on the current path of inclusivity, and that we have more different cultures represented. Because one of the things I loved about Black Panther was that obviously all of the different kind of African tribes that were represented, and it was genuinely stuff that I didn't even, because I understand that they're fictional, but obviously based on real African tribes, and I didn't know any of that. And it was, I think, if you can go into a movie and you enjoy it and you think it's fun, and you walk out of it and you think, well, I've learned something that I didn't know about another culture, or another religion, or whatever, then that is kind of the greatest thing of all. Because yes, it's entertainment, but if it can actually teach you something, then even better, in my opinion. And that was something I kind of felt about Black Panther, and with regards to Captain Marvel, I just kind of walked out and I didn't feel like I learned anything. I was alive in the 90s. I knew about Windows 95 and how rubbish it was.
Internet.
Yeah, and dial-up internet, and reminiscing about going to my local Blockbuster Video to rent a VHS tape. And so it was, I didn't feel like I learnt anything, but a young teenager or a child doesn't know any of that. So hopefully they can walk out of it and go, well, I know sort of what life was like in the 90s. They didn't have like mobile phones and fast internet, and they just kind of had to go on a street corner and use a payphone. It's like ridiculous, but at least I know now they had to do it. But like I say, it resonated with me on a personal level because of the music and because of the setting. And but yeah, it's important that you come out of a movie, I think, and that, like Marie Kondo always says, does it spark joy? And if it sparks joy, well, that's great. And if it doesn't spark joy, well, that's okay too. That's your opinion. But for me, these movies spark joy, and Captain Marvel sparked joy more than anything for me.
Brilliant.
So
brilliant. Cool. Well, Em, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been a huge amount of fun to kind of hear you talk about what this movie means to you, and how much you enjoyed it. And you've been just a brilliant guest. So I think hands down we're going to have you back on again. We're definitely going to have to do that Mummy Appreciation podcast episode, because
I would be so down for that. You know how much I love Mummy.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I want to say thank you for having me on, and for basically just winding me up and letting me go. And because obviously my podcast hasn't been out for very long, and I'm obviously quite mindful of that fact that when you've not kind of been out there very long, and you kind of feel a little bit nervous about doing something like this, and honestly, you've just been so supportive on for my show and helping me get it out there, and I'm so grateful to Woolong Talks for just being stand-up guys, just the nicest guys pretty much in the podcasting world. I swear to God, you're just so great, and obviously I'm a fan of your show. I love listening to you, so it's a little bit like it feels a little bit weird, like talking to you, because obviously I hear you guys like when I'm out and about, and so yeah, it's very surreal talking to you. But it's honestly been this episode sparks joy for me. It really does.
Well, if that isn't a seal of approval, I don't know what is. So thank you. Thank you. But yeah, listeners, I mean, it's been great talking to Em. Verbal Diorama is a podcast that, as you know, I mean, if you follow us on social media, we mention it a lot because, Em's great and what she's doing is great. Recently she released an episode all about Judge Dredd, Dredd.
Yeah, the movie.
Yeah, sorry, I got those completely mixed up.
That's okay, I forgive you.
Is somewhat shameful, really, considering the difference between those two movies in quality.
A little bit. But do you know what? You're not the only person who gets them confused, because people I talk about, when I say, oh yeah, I did an episode on Dredd, and they're like, don't you mean Judge Dredd? And I'm like, no, I don't mean Judge Dredd. I mean Dredd. But yeah, don't worry, I'll forgive you.
But no, I mean, the episode is fantastic. I've shared it previously on social media. But could you let the listeners know where they can listen to that show and where they can talk to you as well? Because as said, you're hella fun to talk to on Twitter. So if you want to plug your pluggables, plug away.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, you can find my show pretty much anywhere. I know I'm on iTunes and Spotify, and basically any podcast app that you've got. Just type in Verbal Diorama and you will find me. And I guess you can also follow me on all of the social medias. It's all really easy because apparently I'm really good at picking names for my podcast, which don't exist on social media. So it's literally Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, just at Verbal Diorama. So it's really simple. You can find me and you can talk to me, because I'll as you've probably established from listening to this, I will talk about anything a lot.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's what we're in this business for. We're in this business to talk. So listeners, make sure you get out Verbal Diorama on Twitter, as I said, and have a chat with her, because she's fantastic. Right, before we go, a couple of quick shout outs. A big thank you, first of all, to Rob Wade from emotionally14.com. Emotionally 14 is a small podcast network that brings together geek podcasts and pop culture podcasts that really cover anything from the kind of stuff we do, like comic books and movies and gaming, right up to kind of Star Wars. So if you're a big Star Wars fan, they've got two really cracking Star Wars podcasts on that network, actually. And Rob is the guy who makes the magic happen. So a big thank you to Rob. And I said you can find us there as well. So if you pop along to emotionally14.com, you'll find us there. And also a big thank you, as always, to the team from the BritPod scene, who are a big support to us as well. For those of you that don't know, BritPod scene is an independent podcast network of purely British podcasters. What they cover, again, I mean, topics wise, you can get anything from bird watching to Ally McBeal to true crime to us to motor racing, football, whatever you like. I'm sure you will find something on the BritPod scene that tickles your fancy. So make sure you head over to www.britpodscene.com and check out all of the shows over there, because as I said, they're brilliant. Well, that's it for us, really. We're going to wrap this episode up now. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any thoughts on Captain Marvel that you want to share with us, then make sure you listen to the end of the episode. You'll find a short trailer there that'll let you know how we can get in touch. I'm going to say goodnight because my throat is really dry and I've got a delicious bottle of apple juice waiting for me in the fridge. So I'm going to say goodnight. Em, say goodnight.
Good night.
And we'll see you all next week, guys. Take care of yourselves and be good. Peace. Thanks for listening to us. If you're down with Woolong Talks, show some love by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Woolong Talks. You can also find us online at www.woolongtalks.com or drop us an email at woolongtalkspodcast@gmail.com. We can also be found as part of the Britpod Scene Collective, and we're also officially E14 endorsed. Search for those hashtags to enjoy more content from us and from other great British podcasters.